Today, let's talk about 6 of the raddest forgotten performance cars from the 1990s, and if I should buy one of them. But first, a 90s car montage. Hey everybody, Ethan here. Welcome to Hello Road. So, the 1990s, they were cool, right? Yes, the 1990s were cool. Okay, maybe the clothing wasn't that great, and the frosted tips weren't that great, and some of the popular music wasn't that great, but while you may not immediately equate this decade with iconic cars, there were actually a ton of excellent vehicles that came out of this era. Slowly fading away were the boxy shapes of the 80s, being replaced with the curves and smooth lines of the 90s. Technological advancements in the 90s meant that engines were becoming more reliable and producing more horsepower, and manufacturers answered the calls of the driving enthusiast and brought forth some fantastic performance cars. But having excellent performance doesn't always equate to sales. Some of the vehicles we'll talk about are barely remembered today. Maybe they were too weird for the buying public, or a bit over the top, maybe they suffered from bad marketing, or maybe were too expensive, or just didn't offer what most buyers wanted at the time. Can we find any of these forgotten cars for sale, or will they all be lost to history?
Time now to take a peek at a special breed of Taurus.
The limited production Ford Taurus SHO. Power in the hands of a fortunate few.
The second generation Ford Taurus was the top selling car in the United States 5 years running, from 1992 to 1996. But it's the SHO that awakened the senses of the driving enthusiasts that wanted the practicality of 4 doors. MotorWeek called it the, quote, first true American sports sedan, and its performance rivaled vehicles twice its price. Both first and second generation SHOs featured a Yamaha-built 3-liter V6, making 220 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque. Not only did the motor look beautiful with its exposed intake runners, but it also sounded wonderful, revving all the way up to 7,000 RPM and propelling the SHO to 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds. The first gen was sold from 89 to 91, but sales were somewhat limited due to the lack of an automatic transmission. Ford offered an auto with the second gen. The automatics actually got a larger 3.2-liter V6, making 15 extra pound-feet of torque. Back in the 90s, this Ford was one of the few American cars that offered incredible performance but could still cart around your family. Would you have purchased an SHO back in the day?
Taurus SHO appeals to a different, more knowledgeable prospect than any other vehicle in our lineup.
Let's see if we can find one. Okay, so we've got a few. Okay, here we have a 1992. This is the first year of the second gen. This one's going for $7,500. It's got a little over 117,000 miles on it. This nice blue color, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. This one has a manual transmission. Looks like this owner owned this car for 25 years. It looks like a pretty decent deal. It's been well taken care of. Okay, here's one with some really awful photos. What is going on here? Maybe I need to do a video on how to take photos for your car listing, because this might be an example of quite possibly one of the worst I've seen. Like, no. Okay, well, I'm closing this one. All right, here's the first gen in 1989 for $7,000. Buy it now. Wow, this is actually a one-owner car. This person's owned this car since 1989. All right, here's another one. They're asking $10,000. And they say it only has 36,000 miles on it? That's insane. All right, here's the second gen. I haven't seen too many of these for sale. This one's an automatic. So if you don't feel like rowing your own gears, here you go. All right, here's a deal. $2,200 for a 1994 Taurus SHO. Higher miles, but it looks like it's in decent shape. A couple rips here and there. It's an automatic, so maybe not for me, but it doesn't look that bad. There we go. That might be a deal right there. All right, are there any more? $400. All right, here's one that needs quite a bit of work. This might be the cheapest Taurus SHO in the United States. Sounds like there is some engine work that needs to be done here, but there you go, $400 for this SHO. All right, here's a 1989 for $5,200. On the surface, this actually looks like a pretty decent bargain, but looking a little bit closer, you'll notice some rust here, some rust there. I might just be a little bit spoiled living in California. I really try to avoid cars with rust at all costs, but I guess if you really want an SHO and you're in the New York area, maybe this one might be the one for you. So yeah, if you're in the market for an SHO, there's quite a few of these available for sale. Okay, off to the next one. While the early 90s Nissan Sentra SER got the attention of the sport compact crowd, the less popular and now mostly forgotten NX2000 was arguably the better car. Featuring the same 140 horsepower SR20DE motor found in the SER, the NX2000 came with better brakes, wider wheels, and offered better handling. It also offered much more radical jelly bean-like styling. The NX2000 was incredibly lightweight and featured a very stiff chassis. At the time, it was considered one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars made. 0 to 60 occurred in about 7.5 seconds, pretty quick for the era. Sold from 1991 to 1993 in the US, the NX2000 actually did quite well in SCCA racing, but never really made much of a sales or cultural impact here. Here in the States, the NX was also available as the NX1600 with a much more tame 1.6 liter motor, making only 115 horsepower. That's the one I usually come across when looking for these, but can we find an NX2000 for sale? Let's find out. All right, one popped up immediately and it seems kind of pricey. $7,000, this one's in Las Vegas. It's only got 91,000 miles on it. Looks like it's in really good shape. It's got the T-tops. Most of these actually came with T-tops. What an adorable little car. There's the SR20 motor. But as we look inside, we notice that it's got an automatic transmission. No thanks. That's just not for me. An NX2000 in my book really needs the manual transmission. But this one looks really nice. I still think it's a little expensive though. Let's see if we can find any others. All right, here's one in Phoenix that is beat to hell. It needs some work, $1,200, doesn't run, needs a fuel pump they say, it needs to be towed. But aside from really faded paint and a few scratches, kind of a lot of scratches, looks like it's all there. Yeah, this car is kind of a disaster, but if you really want an NX2000, here's one. Okay, let's see if we can find something that looks a little bit nicer than this. All right, so here's one for $2,000 in North Carolina. Aside from some faded paint, looks like it's in pretty good shape. There we go, another automatic transmission. It's got the T-tops. It looks okay. Okay, none of these are for me, but it's nice to see that there's still a few of these available. I'll keep looking, but I think I'm gonna hold out for a manual. Okay, off to the next one.
Active 4。これが三菱の総力を結集して開発したニューギャランの最強モデル VR-4 に与えられたタイトルだ。
Let's turn back the clock to when the Mitsubishi Galant VR-4 was available in the States. Back before the Subaru WRX STI or Mitsubishi Lancer Evo made it to our shores, the VR-4 brought high performance and high technology in a relatively understated sedan. This car really was a sleeper. Built to meet Group A rally homologation requirements, the VR-4 featured Mitsubishi's quote, Active 4 technology, which means four-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, four-wheel independent suspension, and four-wheel disc brakes. Featuring a turbocharged 2-liter 4G63 engine, the Mitsubishi Galant VR-4 was a formidable presence. This drivetrain was eventually adapted to the Lancer Evo, so this really kind of is like an Evo before the Evo ever existed. In the US, the VR-4 made 194 horsepower, which may not sound like much by today's standards, but it can reach 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds, quite good for the era. The car made up to 237 horsepower in other markets. Only about 3,000 were sold in the US. Can we find one for sale today? Okay, right off the bat, there's one for sale. $3,500. It's got 184,000 miles. This one's in New Jersey. Let's take a look. I'm actually surprised there's one for sale. This one looks a little rough. It's got some bruises, it's got some dings, but it's a VR-4. So this one has 184,000 miles. The seller says that it's got 40,000 miles on the motor, and the seller also says that it's putting out 374 horsepower to the wheels. I'd like to know if that's true or not. But this car is only $3,500, and as you might have guessed, there is definitely some issues with it. It says it will not rev past 3,500 RPM anymore. But anyway, it's nice that you can still find one of these things. Let's see if we can find another. I know that's probably not gonna happen, but let's try. Look at this, there's another one. All right, this one's $4,000 and it's in Colorado. Let's take a look. Okay, so this one has 157,000 miles and the paint is a bit rough, a little bit of rust, but I'm just excited. I'm surprised that there's another one for sale. 661 of 2,000. Even with the dents, even with the high miles, $4,000 seems kind of like a steal for a car that is so rare. Okay, so we only found two, but keep in mind there were only 2,000 that were sold in the US, so that's pretty exciting. I'm sure if we looked at some Facebook groups, we could probably find a few more for sale, but I'm just excited that I found two. So off to the next one. Let's talk about the first AMG model to reach the United States, and the first AMG model co-developed by Mercedes and AMG. That car is the C36 AMG. The C36 AMG was built to compete with the E36 BMW M3. It featured a race-tuned suspension and a 3.6-liter inline six-cylinder engine that was rated to churn out about 270 horsepower in the States. 0 to 60 occurred in a very quick 6 seconds. Front brakes came from the V12-powered SL600. The automatic transmission came from the larger E420 to handle the extra power. The C36 accelerates hard and doesn't let up in the corners. It's not as quick as the E36 M3, but it's still one fine machine, even though few remember it today. Made from 1995 to 1997, only about 5,200 C36 AMGs were built worldwide, with few of those making it to the States. Can we find one? All right, here's a 1996 for $15,000. This has 84,000 miles on it. This is at a dealer, and actually this looks like it's in really nice shape. Check out this sticker. Sporty! Yes, it's definitely sporty. It's a little bit more than sporty. $15,000 is a lot more than I'd want to pay for this car, but there you go, there's one for sale. All right, here's another one. This one's $11,000 in Portland. It's got slightly higher miles than the last one, but again, looks like it's in really good shape. Whoever owned this car did a really good job of keeping this interior looking nice. Yeah, that's a really nice example right there. Are there any others? Oh, here's one more. This one's for $5,200. This is a 97, 170,000 miles on it. Looks like the issues with this one are just no AC and a sagging headliner. I wonder if there's any other problems with this. This seems like it might be a pretty decent deal. All right, are there any others? Here's another one, $2,500. All right, we're getting down to the cheap stuff. Just what I like. Those aftermarket wheels are not great, not my favorite. What else is going on with this car? 217,000 miles. Runs excellent, but the transmission does not engage. So yes, C36 AMG for $2,500, just throw a new transmission in it. That's all it needs. Okay, so there's a few of these cars for sale. Even though they didn't bring many of these to the United States, I'm surprised that I found 4 of them for sale, ranging from $2,500 well past $10,000. So you have your choice of more than I thought I'd be able to find. Okay, off to the next one. Having been absent from the US car market since 2009, Isuzu is a brand that many in the States don't even remember, which means that they surely don't remember their limited run turbocharged sports coupe, the second gen 1990 through 1992 Impulse RS Turbo. And if you do happen to remember the Impulse from back then, you probably also remember the handling by Lotus badge on the side. Back when this car was designed, General Motors owned a majority share of Isuzu and Lotus. Lotus tuned the suspension in the RS Turbo in exchange for being able to use the drivetrain in the Lotus Elan Roadster. Featuring a turbocharged 1.6-liter motor turning out 160 horsepower, a 5-speed manual, rear bias all-wheel drive, and fantastic brakes, the Impulse RS Turbo could be tossed around a racetrack with ease. 0 to 60 could be achieved in about 7 seconds, which was really good for the era, and it wasn't subtle about it. The rear badging says all-wheel drive intercooled turbo in huge letters. I haven't seen an Impulse RS Turbo in ages. They're incredibly rare. Even at the time, it felt kind of like a niche car for a very particular audience. Apparently, Isuzu only sold about 600 in the United States, and I'd guess that far fewer are still on the road today. It's definitely an underappreciated vehicle. Let's see if we can find one for sale. All right, nothing so far. And I'm just trying to find Isuzu Impulses. I'm not even trying to find an RS. I'm just looking for Impulses in general, not coming up with anything. And I'm guessing that this is probably the kind of car that you'd find on a Facebook group or even maybe still a forum because it's so specific, it's so very rare. Probably searching on Craigslist is not the way to go for this car, but I do know that there was one for sale on Bring a Trailer not too long ago. I'm curious how much that went for. All right, so this Impulse RS Turbo all-wheel drive sold for a lot more than I thought it was going to. This actually sold for $8,900. Yeah, 104,000 miles on it. It just looks awesome. Okay, off to the next one. The last car to be featured today may not be known by the average person, but it's certainly become an icon among driving enthusiasts. It's a car so fast that some tried to have it banned. This car is the Lotus Carlton, also known as the Lotus Omega. When you think Lotus, you usually think small and lightweight, but this Lotus is definitely not either of those things. This is based on the badge-engineered Vauxhall Carlton or Opel Omega, a sensible large four-door saloon not exactly known for its performance. At the time this was built, GM owned Lotus, Opel, and Vauxhall, and wanted to create a car to compete with the four-door sports sedans of the era. But instead of just competing, Lotus took this platform and completely wiped the floor with the competition. It was lower, wider, and had a body kit, but it didn't look that much different than a standard Carlton or Omega. But what lurked underneath the hood made this car one of the fastest four-seater cars in the world. Faster than a Ferrari 348, faster than a Porsche 911 Turbo. The 3.6-liter 24-valve inline-six featured 2 turbochargers and produced a staggering 382 horsepower and 419 pound-feet of torque, unheard of for a sedan of that era. The BMW M5 had no chance. The Carlton obliterated it. Top speed was limited to 177 miles per hour and could hit 190 with the limiter disabled. 0 to 60 occurred in 5.1 seconds. At the time, those kinds of figures were reserved for supercars only. And it wasn't just quick, it handled well too. Though no traction control meant the Carlton demanded your attention and respect when pushing it hard. But when the speeds were low, the Carlton was a comfortable family car that could easily haul your kids in the back seat. A family car that could hit 177 miles per hour. Just 950 were built. 320 were Lotus Carltons and the remaining were Lotus Omegas. They never were sold in the US, and as far as I can tell, only a handful have ever been imported to the States. Are there any for sale right now? Okay, so back in 2014, there was a Carlton for sale in the United States. It looks like it was listed for $45,000. I wonder if it ever sold. I wonder where this car is now. So let's see if there's any for sale outside of the US. Here we go, here's a few. And as expected, these are pricey. So this one is available in Denmark for 59,000 euros. So this is actually in Lotus Omega. It looks awesome. Number 558. Looks like it's missing the stereo. It's a lot of money for a car that's missing the stereo. Just throw something in there before you sell it. All right, for this one, they're asking 70,000 euros. These cars are rare, so I gotta imagine if you're in the market for one of these, you're probably willing to pay that much. Wheels look really nice, in good shape. The interior is in really great shape. All right, let's keep looking. All right, they're asking just about 50,000 euros here. This one's in Germany. Wow, this one looks like it's in great shape. In case you're wondering, yes, these are all in the same color. You can only get this in one color, this kind of emerald green. Here's another one in Germany. This one, 55,000 euros. It looks great. These have all been really kept up really well. Oh, I totally want one of these things. They're just so expensive. Oh, here we go. What's this one? Here's one for 29,000 euros. What's wrong with this? This is the cheapest one I've seen so far. Why is this one so cheap? It actually looks like it's in pretty decent shape. Why is this car only 29,000 euros and all the other ones are like 50, 60, 70? Well, there you go. There's quite a few of these available. I definitely want to import one. I definitely can't afford one, but one day I'll have a Lotus Carlton. One day. So, what are some of your favorite performance cars from the 1990s? Out of these 6, which would be your choice? For me, it's hard to choose. Probably the Lotus, but maybe the SHO, or maybe the NX2000. I really can't decide. I'll have more videos with my collection of 80s and 90s cars, reviews of new and used cars, and road trips to unique locations. And of course, more videos where we look back at the rad cars of the past. Are there any cars that you'd like to see me feature? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, see you soon.
SHO's performance image is immediately recognized up front, where unique front fascia and fog lamps indicate that there's something special under the hood. And under the hood lies a 3-liter double overhead cam 24-valve V6 that offers an impressive 220 horsepower.